The morning sun caught the gold lettering on the wrought iron gates. Whitmore University stood like a cathedral of privilege, all limestone towers and perfectly manicured lawns. Marcus Hayes guided his battered Honda Civic through the entrance, past rows of Mercedes and BMWs, gleaming in faculty parking. He'd followed the orientation email exactly. Row C, spaces 14 through 32, new doctoral students. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. Through the administration building's second-floor window, Dean Patricia Whitfield set down her coffee. Her gaze fixed on the Honda rolling into space 21. She watched a young black man emerge, gathering a backpack and manila folder. Her fingers found her phone before conscious thought. Campus security? Patricia Whitfield. There's an unauthorized individual in faculty parking. Row C. She paused, eyes never leaving Marcus. Yes, immediately. Marcus locked his car and checked his phone. 8:45. Orientation started at 9. He'd made it with time to spare. His grandmother's voice echoed in his mind. Early is on time is late. 2 security golf carts appeared from opposite directions, closing in like wolves. Marcus looked up, confused. Officers Brennan and Torres stepped out, hands resting on their belts. Sir, you need to come with us. Brennan's voice carried across the parking lot. Students walking to class slowed their pace. Phones lifted. Marcus felt dozens of eyes land on him like physical weight. Dean Whitfield emerged from the building, heels clicking against concrete. Her ivory blazer caught the light. This area is restricted. You need to leave immediately. Marcus held up his acceptance letter, hand trembling. I'm a student here. I start today. The dean's expression didn't shift. Anyone can print a document. Where are you from? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you want to see how this unfolds, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happens next will shock you. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus had stood in his grandmother's kitchen in West Baltimore, holding an envelope with Whitmore's seal. His hands shook as he opened it. Congratulations. You have been accepted into Whitmore University's doctoral program in sociology with full merit scholarship. His grandmother, Evelyn Hayes, pressed both hands to her mouth. Tears streamed down her weathered face. She'd cleaned office buildings at Johns Hopkins for 37 years, scrubbing floors while graduate students rushed past discussing their research. Baby, I always knew. Her voice broke. Always knew you'd be one of them brilliant ones. Marcus's mother called from her nursing shift, screaming so loud he had to hold the phone away from his ear. His 12-year-old sister, Jasmine, printed the acceptance letter and taped it to the refrigerator, running her fingers over the embossed seal like it was made of gold. The scholarship covered everything. Tuition, housing, stipend, research funds. Marcus had worked 3 jobs through his master's program at Maryland. Late-night security guard, weekend tutor, research assistant. He'd survived on ramen and determination, building a thesis on institutional bias in elite universities. Whitmore represented transformation. Not just for him, but for everyone who'd believed in him. He'd be Dr. Marcus Hayes, the first PhD in his family's history. He'd received the orientation packet 2 weeks before move-in. Detailed instructions about parking permits, building access, faculty introductions. His assigned spot in row C had been clearly marked on the campus map. Everything had been perfect, organized, clear. Whitmore's campus stretched across 200 acres of Connecticut countryside. Founded in 1834, it boasted 12 Nobel laureates, senators, Supreme Court justices. Its sociology department ranked 3rd in the nation. Professor Ellen Winters had personally recruited Marcus after reading his published research on racial disparities in academic discipline. The campus brochure showed diverse students laughing on sunny quads. The website featured testimonials from students of color, praising Whitmore's inclusive community. Marcus had believed every word. He'd needed to believe. Now standing in that parking lot with security closing in, those glossy promises felt like ash in his mouth. Dean Whitfield had watched Marcus's car enter the lot from her office window. She'd been at Whitmore for 19 years, ascending from assistant professor to dean of student affairs. She knew the rhythms of her campus, the patterns, the order of things. The Honda didn't fit. She dialed security before Marcus even opened his car door. Protocol, she told herself. Protection of university resources. Faculty parking existed for faculty, and this individual clearly wasn't faculty. When Marcus approached the administration building, acceptance letter clutched in his hand, Brennan and Torres were already flanking him. A small crowd of students gathered on the quad, sensing drama. "Sir, we need to see identification." Torres kept his voice professional, but his hand never left his belt. Marcus reached slowly for his wallet, movements deliberate. He'd been taught this by his uncle, who'd served 20 years for a crime he didn't commit. Move slow. Keep your hands visible. Don't give them an excuse. Here's my driver's license. My acceptance letter. The parking lot is for authorized personnel only. Dean Whitfield cut him off, standing 5 feet away, her arms crossed over her chest. You should have received clear instructions about student parking. It's behind the dormitories. The email said row C for new doctoral students. Marcus's voice stayed steady, but something cold crawled up his spine. Spaces 14 through 32. I send those emails personally. The dean's tone sharpened. I would never direct a student to faculty parking. More students gathered. Someone's phone camera light reflected off the Honda's window. Marcus heard whispers, saw pointing fingers. A girl in a lavender sweater leaned toward her friend. Is he stealing a car? Must be, the friend's voice carried. Why else would security be here? Marcus felt the moment shift. In their eyes, he transformed from person to threat. The acceptance letter in his hand became evidence of deception. His carefully pressed button-down shirt and khakis couldn't overcome the equation being written around him. Black man. Expensive parking lot. Security called. Dean Whitfield pulled out her phone, scrolling through emails with sharp, angry swipes. Show me this supposed message. Marcus fumbled with his phone, pulling up his email. His hands shook now, adrenaline making his fingers clumsy. He found the orientation message, sent from studentaffairs@whitmore.edu, and held it toward her. She barely glanced at the screen. That could be edited, photoshopped. Ma'am, I can log into my university account right now. Officers, please escort this individual off campus. If he refuses to leave voluntarily, you're authorized to detain him for trespassing. Brennan reached for Marcus's arm. The crowd pressed closer, phones lifted higher. Marcus thought of his grandmother's face when she'd seen his acceptance letter. He thought of Jasmine's pride, her friends asking if her brother was really going to Whitmore. He thought of every professor who'd told him he belonged in academia, every scholarship committee that had believed in his potential, and he thought of his research, all those interviews with students of color who'd described moments exactly like this one. Moments when belonging became conditional. When presence became suspicious. Please, Marcus said quietly, just let me show you my student portal. Dean Whitfield turned away, dismissing him with her back. The security officer's grip tightened on Marcus's bicep. Not painful, but firm, proprietary. The message clear: you are being removed. Around them the crowd swelled. 40 students now, maybe 50. Their phones formed a constellation of tiny lights, recording everything. Marcus wondered if this would go viral. If his family would see him being escorted off campus before he ever told them what happened. His grandmother's voice whispered in his memory. She'd cleaned floors at Hopkins for decades, invisible to the students who rushed past. She'd told him stories about the janitors and cafeteria workers, about being treated like furniture. But you, baby, she'd say, you're going to sit at their table. You're going to be the one they have to listen to. Now Marcus couldn't even stand in their parking lot. His chest felt tight. Not panic, he wouldn't give them that. But something harder, colder. Disappointment so heavy it felt like drowning. He'd believed Whitmore was different. He'd believed the diversity statements, The inclusion initiatives, the glossy promises. 3 months of excitement condensed into this single moment of humiliation. A girl in the crowd filmed openly, narrating into her phone. This guy just tried to park in faculty and the dean called security. Wild. She sounded entertained, like she was watching a reality show. Marcus met her eyes. She looked away. He thought about turning around, walking to his car, driving back to Baltimore, calling Professor Winters to explain why he couldn't accept the fellowship after all. It would be easier, safer, less exhausting than fighting for a place that didn't want him. But then he thought of his sister printing his acceptance letter, of his mother crying with joy, of every ancestor who'd survived worse than this, so he straightened his shoulders. I have every right to be here. Dean Whitfield turned back, one eyebrow raised. Are you refusing to comply with campus security? Before Marcus could answer, 3 black sedans pulled through the university gates. Marcus had been 7 when his father was arrested. He remembered blue lights spinning in the darkness, his mother's choked sobs, his grandmother's iron grip on his hand. It's gonna be okay, baby. We're gonna be okay. They hadn't been okay for a long time. His father's 15-year sentence for drug possession, later revealed to be a wrongful conviction, had shattered their family. His mother worked double shifts. His grandmother added weekend cleaning jobs to her Hopkins schedule. Marcus learned to be small, quiet, unthreatening. He learned which teachers would listen and which ones had already decided who he was. He learned to carry books everywhere, making himself visible as a student rather than a threat. At Baltimore Polytechnic High School, his English teacher, Mrs. Chen, had pulled him aside. You're writing at a college level. Have you thought about what comes after graduation? He hadn't. College felt like a dream for other people's children. Mrs. Chen helped him apply for scholarships. 15 applications, 7 acceptances. University of Maryland offered a full ride. His grandmother cried again, pressing her worn hands to his face. Your daddy's going to be so proud when he hears. At Maryland, Marcus discovered sociology. He devoured texts about systemic inequality, structural racism, institutional barriers. He interviewed dozens of students of color about their experiences in predominantly white universities. The patterns were clear. The microaggressions, the assumptions, the security stops and ID checks, the constant questioning of belonging. One interviewee, a black woman named Shanice, had described being stopped by campus police 17 times in one semester. I had my student ID visible every single time. Didn't matter. To them, I was always trespassing. Marcus had written his master's thesis on these experiences. His research had been published in 3 academic journals. Professor Winters from Whitmore had read his work and reached out personally. Your research is exactly what our department needs. Have you considered doctoral study? She'd advocated for him, secured his full scholarship, promised mentorship. She'd written in her recommendation letter, Marcus Hayes represents the future of sociology, rigorous, compassionate, deeply committed to justice. Now that Future was being dragged away by security in front of dozens of filming phones, his grandmother had given him something before he left Baltimore. A small leather notebook worn at the edges. My mama gave this to me when I got my first job. She told me, write down the truth. Don't let anybody tell you it didn't happen. Marcus had tucked it in his backpack that morning. Now he wished he could reach for it. Document this moment before memory distorted it. But his arms were restrained, and the crowd pressed closer, and Dean Whitfield's expression remained carved from ice. The 3 sedans parked in a precise line behind Marcus's Honda. Doors opened simultaneously. 6 people emerged, their movements coordinated and purposeful. The woman leading them wore a cobalt blue blazer and carried a leather portfolio. Her natural hair formed a crown around her face. She surveyed the scene with the calm assessment of someone accustomed to exactly this kind of chaos. Behind her, 5 others spread out. 2 men in dark suits, 3 women carrying tablets and recording equipment. Official badges glinted on their belts. Dean Whitfield's grip on her phone tightened. Her jaw worked, but no sound emerged. The woman in cobalt blue approached Marcus first. Her eyes took in the security officer's hand on his arm, the crowd of filming students, the acceptance letter still clutched in Marcus's free hand. "Are you a student at this university?" Her voice carried authority without volume. Marcus found his voice. "I'm supposed to be. Today's my first day of orientation." She turned to the security officers. "Please release him." Brennan hesitated, looking to Dean Whitfield for direction. The dean stepped forward, shoulders squared. "Excuse me, but this is university property. You have no authority here." The woman pulled her badge from her belt, holding it at eye level. "Dr. Aisha Rahman, Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights. We're conducting an unannounced compliance audit of Whitmore University. And actually, I have quite a lot of authority here." The color drained from Dean Whitfield's face. Dr. Rahman gestured to her team. "Document this scene. Interview witnesses. I want statements from campus security and from—" She looked at Marcus's acceptance letter. "Mr. Hayes here." One of the women with tablets approached Marcus. "Sir, can you tell me what happened this morning?" The words tumbled out. "The orientation email. Row C parking. The dean calling security before he'd even entered the building. The accusations of trespassing. The assumption he'd edited university communications." Dr. Rahman listened, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp. When Marcus finished, she turned to Dean Whitfield. "Dean Whitfield, I'd like to see Mr. Hayes's student records. Immediately." "Of course. But I should explain, this was a simple misunderstanding about parking protocols. I didn't ask for an explanation yet." Dr. Rahman's voice remained calm. "Records first." Dean Whitfield's assistant, a nervous woman in a dusty rose cardigan, pulled out her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. After 30 seconds, she turned the screen toward Dr. Rahman. "Marcus Hayes, doctoral student in sociology. Full merit scholarship. Faculty advisor Professor Ellen Winters. Campus housing assigned. Parking permit issued for row C. Spaces 14 through 32 active as of today." The silence stretched like pulled taffy. Students in the crowd leaned forward, straining to hear. Dr. Rahman's gaze moved from the screen to Dean Whitfield's face. "So Mr. Hayes was exactly where he was authorized to be." "I wasn't informed of his parking assignment." The dean's voice had lost its edge. "There must have been a communication breakdown. There seems to be a pattern of communication breakdowns at Whitmore." Dr. Rahman pulled a folder from her portfolio. "This audit was triggered by 17 formal complaints filed in the past 18 months. 15 of those complaints came from black students or faculty. They describe a consistent pattern of discriminatory treatment regarding campus access, parking, building entry, and library privileges." She opened the folder, pulling out a sheet. 3 black students withdrew from Whitmore last year, citing hostile campus climate. 4 others were placed on disciplinary probation after filing discrimination complaints. 2 black faculty members resigned, citing lack of institutional support. Dean Whitfield's hands trembled. "I'm not aware of any pattern." "That's precisely the problem." Dr. Rahman closed the folder. "You should be aware. It's your job to be aware." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Not vindication, not yet. But recognition. He wasn't imagining this. He wasn't being sensitive or misreading the situation. This was real, documented, part of a pattern that stretched back 18 months. How many others had stood where he stood? How many had been escorted away while cameras filmed and crowds whispered? Dr. Rahman turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Hayes, I'd like to speak with you privately. Would that be acceptable?" Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. As Dr. Rahman led him toward one of the sedans, Marcus glanced back at the crowd. Some students looked uncomfortable now, phones lowered. Others still filmed, hungry for content. Dean Whitfield stood frozen, her ivory blazer suddenly looking like armor that had failed. Inside the sedan, Dr. Rahman's demeanor shifted slightly. Still professional, but softer. That must have been terrifying. Marcus exhaled, the sound ragged. I kept thinking about my grandmother. About having to tell her I couldn't do this. You shouldn't have to. Dr. Rahman opened a second folder, this one thicker. Marcus, I need to be honest with you about what we found at Whitmore. His stomach dropped. You're the 7th black student to report discriminatory treatment related to parking and campus access in the past 18 months. 3 of those students withdrew from their programs. 4 were placed on academic or disciplinary probation after filing complaints. Marcus felt the words land like physical blows. Probation for what? Various infractions. Challenging a professor's authority, violating student conduct policies, creating a hostile learning environment. Dr. Rahman's expression hardened. All charges brought by Dean Whitfield's office. So if I'd complained, you would have likely faced retaliation disguised as academic discipline. She paused, letting him process. The dean has significant discretion over student conduct matters. Our investigation suggests she's used that discretion to silence dissent. Marcus thought of his scholarship, his research, everything he'd worked for, vulnerable to one person's bias. Why didn't anyone stop her? That's what we're here to find out. Dr. Rahman's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. Marcus, I need to ask, are you willing to participate in this investigation? It would mean giving formal statements, possibly testifying if this proceeds to enforcement action. Yes. He didn't hesitate. Whatever you need. It won't be easy. Dean Whitfield has powerful allies on the board of trustees. This university has deep pockets and excellent attorneys. They'll try to discredit you, claim you're being coached or seeking attention. Marcus thought of Shanice, stopped 17 times by campus police. He thought of the 3 students who'd withdrawn, their dreams abandoned. He thought of his father, wrongfully convicted because the system had already decided who he was. I have to do this. Dr. Rahman nodded, something like respect flickering in her eyes. Okay, my team will begin interviews today. We'll need to see all university communications, security logs, disciplinary records. This will take weeks, possibly months. What happens to me in the meantime? You attend orientation. You start your classes. You do exactly what you came here to do. She handed him a business card. But if anything happens, any retaliation, any suspicious disciplinary action, you call me immediately. They stepped out of the sedan. The crowd had dispersed, leaving scattered students whispering in small groups. Campus security had retreated to their golf carts. Dean Whitfield stood with her assistant near the administration building entrance, phone pressed to her ear. As Marcus walked past, he heard fragments of her conversation. Need legal counsel immediately. Federal overreach. No basis for these accusations. She glanced up, meeting Marcus's eyes. Something cold and calculating settled in her expression. Not defeat. Not acceptance. Strategy. Dr. Rahman pulled Marcus aside one more time before her team began their formal investigation. Her voice dropped low, meant only for him. There's something else you need to know. Marcus's stomach clenched. What? The complaints we received didn't just describe parking incidents or building access issues. 3 students reported grade retaliation after filing discrimination complaints. Their academic performance was suddenly questioned. Research proposals were rejected. Funding was withdrawn. By who? Faculty advisors were pressured by the dean's office. Not explicitly. Nothing that leaves a paper trail. But the pattern is clear. Students complain about bias, and suddenly their academic standing becomes precarious. Marcus thought of Professor Winters, who'd recruited him so enthusiastically. Would she stand by him if the dean applied pressure? Or would his scholarship, his research position, his entire future crumble? I want you prepared for what might come. Dr. Rahman's expression showed genuine concern. The dean knows we're investigating. She knows you're cooperating. She can't retaliate overtly. We'll be watching too closely. But there are subtle ways to make your life difficult. A faculty member who suddenly can't meet with you. Research access that gets delayed. Funding disbursements that take longer than normal. So I'm supposed to just accept that? No. You're supposed to document everything. Dates, times, witnesses. Keep records of all communications. Save every email, every text, every conversation note. Marcus felt exhaustion crash over him. His first day of graduate school, and he was already being taught how to build a legal defense. Dr. Rahman's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and her jaw tightened. I need to take this. She stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but he caught her body language, shoulders tensing, head shaking. When she returned, her expression was carefully blank. What? Marcus demanded. What is it? That was my supervisor. Dean Whitfield has already contacted Whitmore's legal team and the Board of Trustees. They're claiming this investigation is politically motivated and academically disruptive. She paused. They're also suggesting that your acceptance to Whitmore might have been obtained through misrepresentation. The world tilted. What does that mean? They're implying you falsified elements of your application, that your research credentials might be exaggerated, that you may have received preferential treatment through diversity initiatives that violate merit-based standards. Marcus couldn't breathe. They were going to destroy him. Not just remove him from campus, actually destroy his academic reputation, his credibility, everything he'd built. Can they do that? They can try, Dr. Rahman's voice hardened. But we have something they don't expect. What? She pulled out her tablet, opening a file. 2 weeks ago, a former admissions officer at Whitmore contacted our office. She was fired last month after raising concerns about discriminatory practices in the admissions process. She kept copies of internal communications. Dr. Rahman turned the tablet toward Marcus. He saw an email thread dated 6 months earlier. Dean Whitfield's name at the top. The subject line read, "Concerns regarding diversity admits to doctoral programs." Marcus's hands shook as he scrolled through the messages. Phrases jumped out at him. Lowering our academic standards. Preferential treatment creates resentment. Need to maintain institutional excellence. And then, buried in the third email, the Hayes candidate in sociology. Are we certain he's qualified for our program? Professor Winters had responded, defending Marcus's credentials. The dean had written back, "I'll trust your judgment, but I want regular reports on his progress. We can't afford another equity admission who doesn't work out." Marcus looked up, vision blurring. She never wanted me here. No, Dr. Rahman agreed quietly. She didn't. Across the parking lot, Dean Whitfield ended her phone call. Her assistant handed her a folder, thick, overstuffed with papers. The dean rifled through it, pulling out specific documents. She looked directly at Marcus and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone holding all the cards. Dr. Rahman followed Marcus's gaze. Her expression darkened. That's her disciplinary files. Every violation, every complaint, every incident she's documented against students over the past 5 years. Why would she? Understanding hit Marcus like cold water. She's building a case against me. Right now, most likely, she'll find students I allegedly mistreated in that parking lot. Security protocols I supposedly violated. Maybe even accuse you of threatening behavior. Marcus remembered the crowd filming, the girl who'd narrated his humiliation for her followers. Every phone recording his shock, his fear, his trembling hands, evidence. All of it could be twisted into evidence. What do I do? Dr. Rahman's jaw set. You go to orientation. You act like nothing's wrong. And you let me handle the dean. But as Marcus walked toward the administration building, where his orientation was supposed to have started 30 minutes ago, he felt eyes tracking him. Students whispered. Our security golf cart rolled slowly past, Brennan behind the wheel. He pulled out his phone and texted his grandmother. Made it to campus. Everything's fine. I love you. The lie tasted like ash. Behind him, Dean Whitfield entered the administration building, that thick folder tucked under her arm. Her heels clicked against marble like a countdown. Marcus didn't know it yet, but in that folder was a complaint filed by a white student who claimed Marcus had been aggressive and threatening in the parking lot that morning. The student's name was Emily Brennan. Officer Brennan's daughter. The trap was already closing. Marcus sat alone in the orientation room 30 minutes late. 23 other doctoral students had already partnered for icebreaker activities. They glanced at him as he entered, whispers trailing like smoke. The orientation coordinator, a cheerful woman in a mustard-yellow cardigan, barely acknowledged him. Find a seat wherever you can. No apology for what had happened outside. No acknowledgement that he'd been detained by security while everyone else settled in. Marcus slid into a back row seat. The woman next to him, white blonde wearing pearls, shifted slightly away. Not obvious. Just enough. His phone buzzed. A text from his grandmother. "How's orientation, baby? Making friends?" He couldn't answer. His throat felt too tight. Around him, students laughed at the coordinator's jokes. They compared research interests, exchanged social media handles. Marcus might as well have been invisible. During the break, he stepped into the hallway. Through the window, he could see Dr. Rahman's team photographing the parking lot, interviewing lingering students. Official, documented, real. But inside this building, everything felt wrong. The air itself seemed to reject him. A voice behind him. "That was you, right? In the parking lot?" Marcus turned. A South Asian student, maybe 25, held 2 coffee cups. He offered one to Marcus. "I'm Raj, biochemistry. That was messed up what happened." Marcus accepted the coffee, throat tight. "Yeah. My cousin got stopped by campus police at Yale 17 times in one semester, just for walking to the library." Raj's expression darkened. "These places talk about diversity, but they don't actually want us here." The simple solidarity cracked something in Marcus's chest. Not hope, not yet, but recognition. He wasn't alone in seeing what others refused to acknowledge. "Thanks for the coffee." Raj nodded. "Watch your back, man, seriously." As orientation resumed, Marcus noticed the coordinator avoiding eye contact with him. When she called on students to share their research interests, she skipped over his raised hand 3 times. By lunch, Marcus understood. The isolation was already beginning. That evening, Marcus sat in his assigned dorm room, a single in the graduate housing complex. His unpacked boxes surrounded him like accusations. He'd imagined decorating this space, making it home. Now it felt like a cell. His phone rang. "Professor Winters, Marcus, I just heard what happened." "I'm so sorry." Her voice carried genuine distress. "I should have walked you through your first day. I should have—" "It's not your fault. The dean called me an hour ago. She wants to meet with both of us tomorrow morning." Professor Winters paused. "Marcus, she mentioned concerns about the parking lot incident. She's suggesting there might have been a misunderstanding about your conduct." Ice filled Marcus's veins. "My conduct?" "Apparently a student filed a complaint. Claims you were verbally aggressive toward security officers." Professor Winters's voice hardened. "I don't believe it for a second. But I need you to know what we're dealing with." Marcus remembered Officer Brennan's daughter, the thick folder under the dean's arm. "The trap closing. I was polite. I showed them my acceptance letter. I never raised my voice. I know. And Dr. Rahman's team is collecting witness statements that will prove it." "But Marcus," she hesitated, "the dean has discretion over student conduct. She can suspend you pending investigation. She can restrict your campus access, freeze your funding. She won't do it overtly, but she can make everything difficult. So what do I do? You document everything. You cooperate with Dr. Rahman's investigation, and you let me handle the dean." Professor Winters's voice turned steel. "I've been at Whitmore for 15 years. I have tenure, and I chair the faculty senate. She can't push me around." After they hung up, Marcus opened his laptop. He created a new document, timeline and evidence. He wrote down every detail from that morning. Times, quotes, witnesses. He saved copies of his orientation email, his parking permit, his acceptance letter. His phone buzzed. An email from Dean Whitfield's office. Meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 9 a.m., attendance mandatory. Marcus forwarded it to Dr. Rahman. Her response came within minutes. I'll be there. Say nothing without representation present. He pulled out his grandmother's leather notebook. His hand shook as he wrote, Day 1, they called security before I even left my car. They decided who I was before I could introduce myself. A knock on his door. Marcus tensed, but it was Raj holding takeout containers. Figured you might not want to deal with the dining hall tonight. They ate in silence for a while. Then Raj said quietly, My cousin at Yale, the one who got stopped 17 times. He's finishing his PhD next month, top of his program, published in Nature twice. How did he survive it? He found his people, built a network, documented everything. Raj met Marcus's eyes. You can't fight them alone. None of us can. After Raj left, Marcus scrolled through social media. The parking lot videos had spread. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. Half the comments supported him. This is exactly what black students face at elite universities. The other half attacked. He was probably trespassing. Always playing the race card. Security was just doing their job. One comment, posted from a burner account 3 hours ago. Marcus Hayes falsified his application credentials. Source, Whitmore faculty. Marcus's blood ran cold. The smear campaign had already started. He screenshotted everything. Every comment, every share, every lie. Then he sent it all to Dr. Rahman with a simple message. It's happening. Her response, good, let them show their hand. Every attack they make helps our case. Marcus stared at his unpacked boxes, at the acceptance letter still taped to his wall, at his grandmother's notebook, half filled now with the truth they wanted to erase. He thought about quitting, about driving back to Baltimore, finding a teaching job, living a smaller life, a safer life. Then he thought about the 3 students who'd withdrawn, the 4 on probation, the pattern that would continue unless someone stood firm. He opened his laptop and composed an email to Dr. Rahman. I'm ready to fight, whatever it takes. The dean's conference room felt designed for intimidation. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, oil paintings of stern white men. Dean Whitfield sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 university attorneys in matching charcoal suits. Marcus entered with Professor Winters. Dr. Rahman arrived 30 seconds later, carrying 3 folders and wearing an expression that could cut glass. Dr. Rahman, this is a university matter. Dean Whitfield's voice was ice. Your presence isn't necessary. Actually, federal civil rights investigations supersede university disciplinary proceedings. I'm staying. Dr. Rahman sat directly across from the dean. Shall we begin? Dean Whitfield's jaw tightened. She opened her folder, pulling out a printed complaint form. Marcus, a student has filed a formal complaint regarding your behavior yesterday morning. She states that you were verbally aggressive toward campus security, used threatening language, and created a hostile environment. That's a lie. Marcus's voice stayed level. I was polite. I showed my documentation. I never threatened anyone. The student who filed the complaint is a reliable witness, a senior with an impeccable record. The dean slid the form across the table. Her statement is detailed and credible. Dr. Rahman didn't touch the complaint form. Instead, she opened her first folder. Emily Brennan, daughter of Officer Brennan, one of the security officers who detained Mr. Hayes. Interesting that you didn't mention that relationship. The dean's expression flickered. That doesn't invalidate her statement. It absolutely raises questions about bias. Dr. Rahman pulled out a printed document. It also contradicts the statements from 6 other witnesses we interviewed yesterday. All of them describe Mr. Hayes as calm, cooperative, and respectful. She spread the witness statements across the table like cards. 2 graduate students, 3 undergraduates, 1 visiting parent, all independently corroborate Mr. Hayes's account. None of them mention threatening behavior. One of the university attorneys leaned forward. Witness perceptions can vary, not this dramatically. Dr. Rahman opened her second folder. We also obtained security footage from the administration building. Time-stamped high-definition video of the entire incident. Dean Whitfield went pale. Would you like to watch it, or shall I summarize? Dr. Rahman's voice could have frozen water. Mr. Hayes parks in his assigned spot at 8:43 a.m. You call security at 8:44 before he even exits his vehicle. He approaches the building at 8:47. Officers intercept him at 8:48. At no point does he raise his voice. At no point does he make threatening gestures. In fact, the footage shows him taking a step backward when officers approach. She pulled out a still image from the video. Marcus standing with both hands visible, acceptance letter extended, expression confused. This is your threatening individual. Professor Winters spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. Patricia, you called security before Marcus even left his car. The footage proves it. You saw a black student and assumed he didn't belong. That's not. The dean stopped, regrouping. I saw an unfamiliar vehicle in a restricted area. Standard protocol. Standard protocol. Dr. Rahman's tone dripped skepticism. She opened her third folder. We reviewed security call logs from the past 3 years. You've called campus security for parking violations exactly 3 times. All 3 involved black individuals. You've never called for white students or visitors, despite numerous unauthorized parking incidents documented in security reports. The room fell silent. Even the attorneys looked uncomfortable. Furthermore, Dr. Rahman continued, we obtained the email communications regarding Mr. Hayes's admission, including your message questioning whether he was qualified for your program, despite credentials that exceeded those of 70% of your current doctoral students. She pulled out the printed email thread, the one the former admissions officer had provided. Dean Whitfield's words laid bare. Concerns about diversity admits, questions about maintaining excellence, doubts about Marcus's qualification. Professor Winters read the emails, her expression darkening with each line. Patricia, tell me you didn't. Those communications were taken out of context. There is no context that makes this acceptable. Professor Winters's voice shook. You discriminated against this student from the moment you saw his application. You tried to prevent his admission, and when that failed, you called security on his first day because you'd already decided he didn't belong. Dean Whitfield's composure cracked. I have served this institution for 19 years and created a hostile environment for students of color. Dr. Rahman's words landed like hammer blows. 17 formal complaints in 18 months, 3 student withdrawals, 4 retaliatory disciplinary actions, a pattern so clear it triggered a federal investigation. She closed her folders, hands flat on the table. Dean Whitfield, the Office for Civil Rights is recommending your immediate suspension pending the completion of our investigation. We're also recommending an independent review of all disciplinary actions you've overseen in the past 5 years, and mandatory anti-discrimination training for your entire staff. You can't, one of the attorneys started. We can. We are. Dr. Rahman stood. Mr. Hayes, you're free to continue your studies without restriction. Your scholarship is fully protected. Any attempt at retaliation will result in additional federal enforcement action. Marcus couldn't speak. He'd expected to defend himself, to argue his case. He hadn't expected vindication to arrive so completely, so swiftly. Dean Whitfield stared at the emails, her carefully constructed defense crumbling. This will destroy my career. You destroyed your own career the moment you let bias guide your decisions. Professor Winters's voice was quiet now, almost sad. I recommended Marcus because he's brilliant, because his research is exactly what this field needs. And you tried to sabotage him because of the color of his skin. Dr. Rahman turned to Marcus. Are you comfortable continuing at Whitmore? If not, we can facilitate a transfer with full scholarship protection. Marcus thought about running, about choosing an easier path. Then he thought about the students who'd come before him, the ones who'd withdrawn, whose dreams had been crushed. He thought about his grandmother cleaning floors at Hopkins, believing her grandson would sit at the table. I'm staying. This is my place. I earned it. Dean Whitfield looked at him for the first time that meeting, really looked at him. Whatever she saw in his face made her look away. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in his sociology seminar presenting his research proposal. 12 students and 3 faculty members listened as he outlined his dissertation, Institutional Bias and the Experience of Black Students at Elite Universities, a case study. His primary data would come from Whitmore itself. Professor Winters smiled from the front row. Excellent framing, Marcus. You've identified a critical gap in the literature. After class, students approached him. Some offered collaboration. Others shared their own stories of bias, discrimination, moments when they'd felt erased. Raj introduced him to the graduate students of Color Alliance. 20 members, representing every department. They met weekly, shared resources, supported each other through the particular challenges of being minoritized students at elite institutions. We're starting a mentorship program, Raj explained, pairing new students with veterans who've learned to navigate the system. Want to help? Marcus Dean Whitfield had been placed on administrative leave. The university appointed an interim dean, a black woman with a doctorate in educational equity. Her first action was establishing an advisory board on diversity and inclusion, with student representatives holding voting power. Her second action was personally apologizing to Marcus in a meeting that left them both in tears. What happened to you should never have happened. I'm here to make sure it doesn't happen again. Marcus didn't know if she could keep that promise. Institutions changed slowly, reluctantly, but it was a start. He video-called his grandmother, showing her his dorm room, now decorated with books, plants, photos. Her face on the screen glowed with pride. I knew you'd make it, baby. Knew it in my bones. I almost quit, Grandma. First day I almost left. But you didn't, that's what matters. She wiped her eyes. Your daddy called yesterday. He heard about what happened. About how you stood up. Marcus's throat tightened. His father still had 8 years on his sentence. But knowing he was proud made the fight feel worthwhile. Professor Winters recruited Marcus as a research assistant on her new project studying racial equity in academic disciplines. Paid position, publication opportunities, national conference presentations. You've already done the hardest research, she told him. You lived it. The parking lot incident had gone viral. News outlets covered it. Educational journals analyzed it. Whitmore faced public scrutiny that forced genuine institutional change. 3 students who'd previously withdrawn reached out to Marcus. 2 were considering returning. 1 had filed her own complaint with the Office for Civil Rights. Marcus walked across campus now without fear. He still noticed the stares, the whispers, but he also noticed other things. The new signs in multiple languages, the accessibility improvements, the diversity statement that now meant something. One afternoon, he saw Officer Brennan near the library. Their eyes met. Brennan looked away first. Marcus kept walking, head high. In his grandmother's leather notebook, he wrote, Week 3. I belong here, not because they finally acknowledge it, but because I know it. 6 months later, Marcus presented at the American Sociological Association conference. His paper on institutional bias received a standing ovation. 3 universities offered him postdoctoral fellowships. But the moment that mattered most came after the presentation. A young black woman approached, nervous energy radiating from her. I'm starting my PhD at Duke next fall. I saw what happened to you at Whitmore. How you fought back. She paused, gathering courage. It made me think I could do this too. Marcus remembered standing in that parking lot, security closing in, wondering if he'd survive. He remembered the moment he'd almost quit, almost accepted that elite institutions weren't meant for people like him. "You can do this," he told her. "And when they try to make you feel like you don't belong, remember, belonging isn't given." "They exclaimed." She nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears. That evening, Marcus called his grandmother. She answered on the first ring, voice warm with love. "How'd it go, Dr. Hayes?" He wasn't Dr. Hayes yet. Had 3 more years before that title. But hearing her say it made the future feel real. "It went perfect, Grandma. Course it did. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." After they hung up, Marcus walked through the conference hotel, past other scholars discussing research, debating theories, building the knowledge that would shape future generations. He thought about Dean Whitfield, removed from her position, facing disciplinary action. He didn't take joy in her downfall, but he understood that accountability was necessary for change. He thought about the students who'd withdrawn before him, whose voices had been silenced. His success wouldn't erase their pain, but maybe it would make the path easier for those who came next. In his notebook, he wrote one final entry. "The system wasn't built for us, but we're here anyway. Building spaces where we don't just survive, we thrive. That's the revolution. Not destruction, but transformation. Not acceptance, but belonging we create for ourselves and each other." Marcus closed the notebook. Outside, the city lights sparkled like promises. He was exactly where he belonged. Not because an institution granted him permission, but because he'd claimed his place and refused to be erased. The parking lot incident had become his origin story. The moment everything changed. But more than that, it became proof that standing firm matters. That documenting truth matters. That refusing to accept injustice creates pathways for those who follow. One person standing up couldn't dismantle systemic bias, but one person standing up could inspire others to stand, could force institutions to acknowledge their failures, could transform a moment of humiliation into a catalyst for change. Marcus Hayes belonged at Whitmore University. He always had.